everyone, and thank you so much for having me. I'm here to speak to you about joint health today and how it can be achieved at every age. To give you an idea of what we'll be discussing, first I'll share some information about myself and my health philosophy. Then I'll talk about the reasons why the health of our joints may change over time. And finally, I'll talk about what we can do to stop, or in some cases even reverse, the inflammatory conditions that we experience like osteoarthritis. To start, let me give you some background on me. Many of you will recognize me as the Health Benefits Coordinator at RTOERO, and while that's true, I'm also a certified nutritional practitioner with my own growing practice. I spend a lot of my time outside of work with RTO with clients and also reading a lot of medical journals and information in the pursuit of optimal health. I prefer to take an evidence-based approach to all of my work as a nutritionist, and my hope is to equip you with the knowledge that you need to really thrive. I like to begin all of my presentations with a brief exercise of visualization. I find that when I'm working with clients, it's really hard to produce a positive outcome if the client does not have an idea of what health would look like for them. So for me, I define health as the absence of disease, having boundless energy, operating with a high and focused cognitive ability, being physically and emotionally limitless, experiencing growth spiritually, and being able to stay aware, present within my own body and my mind. So if this is our working definition of health, it's important to really remember that health is not about just losing a few pounds or the absence of disease. It might have nothing to do with the way that you look at all. In fact, health is about feeling good and showing up regardless of where you are on your health journey. And health is about optimization. It's about really trying to push the limits on how good we could possibly feel given our current state. So if you have a chronic condition or if you're not in the best shape of your life, you can still make the subtle shifts that your body needs in order to really try and reach for that most vibrant level of living. Now that we've defined what we're aiming for, let's talk about our joints. Now, I probably should preface this slide because with all the talk on medical cannabis, I kind of wonder what you think I'm going to be talking about here. But just to get back into it and get back to the point, I will give you some high-level information about what joints are and what they do in our bodies. To recap the anatomy of the joint, joints are the areas in our bodies where two bones meet, and because this is the precise area where movement stems from, the health of our joints directly affects our ability to mobilize. And when you put it this way, I'm pretty sure you're feeling very grateful for all of the movement and all of the ability that your body gives you. In fact, you might be saying, I really love my joints, but then wondering as well, why do they hurt so much? Well, your joints become painful because of increased swelling and loss of shock-absorbing cartilage over time. This typically affects weight-bearing joints like the hips and the knees and along the spine. And this happens for two reasons primarily. The first one is due to joint injury, trauma, or carrying too much load on the joints over time. But the second and more common reason is repeated use over a lifetime without the same ability to regenerate the cartilage that we're depleting with our movements. When this happens, the underlying bone becomes exposed and damaged, and in the effort to protect and mend itself, the body ends up depositing more bone in and around the joint, which causes stiffness and reduces mobility. As a reminder, if you hear of any condition with the suffix itis, it refers to inflammation. So in this case we're discussing today, inflammation is truly the culprit here in crowding the joint capsule and leading to a condition called osteoarthritis. Very common condition. So we acknowledge that the joints need a lot of love and they do a lot of things for us. We're in pain, so what can we do about it? Or maybe you're not in pain, but you want to be preventative and take care of your joints right now. What can we do? Well, we know that happy joints need a couple of things just to maintain their health. They need compression, and then they need release. Fluid needs to be pumped out of the cartilage by being compressed. This moves toxins out of the cartilage and into the joint capsule. The compression then needs to be released so that the fluid can exchange these waste products and flood the cartilage with fresh, new nutrients. So now that we know how our joints work, what they need, let's talk about the steps that we need to give yourself the best chance to stop the onset of joint inflammation and even reverse it. And I've put together a little game plan of about 3 things. Number 1 would be to stop the damage. So stop the damage that we're doing immediately. The next thing would be to reduce inflammation. And the third would be to support the body's natural ability to heal using a very targeted approach. In order to stop the damage, there are both diet and lifestyle recommendations. The first one probably comes as no surprise. We do need ample hydration. There always needs to be enough water in our bodies to form the fluid in our cartilage and lubricate our joints. Water also helps to dissolve the minerals that our body needs, specifically our musculoskeletal system, and make it available for use in the body. My recommendation is to work up to between 3 to 4 liters of filtered water per day. The second, and probably the most important factor, and I guess I'm biased because as a nutritionist, I have to say this, but your diet is going to be really important. I encourage you to think about your day-to-day diet and think about what sources of inflammation that may be offering or bringing to you. The typical culprits are things like refined sugars, refined flours, damaged fats, processed food in general. Tackle this in your diet first. I'll be sharing some tips on this as we go along. And then you're going to want to make sure you're finding the right activity for your body. You'll know intuitively if an activity feels right for your body. You need to choose one that doesn't cause enough strain on your joints, but you also need to put enough pressure on your joints to compress them and make sure that you're doing that compression and release that your joints really need to stay healthy. Since inflammation is at the core of joint pain, we really need to make sure that we're limiting this as much as possible. But before we can go completely demonizing inflammation, let me remind you that producing an inflammatory response is actually the body's way of helping you and healing yourself. Consider this. We've all sprained an ankle and we know what it feels like. We have seen the red, swollen, angry, warm ankle before and thought to ourselves like, okay, no, this is really bad. Let's pop an anti-inflammatory. But actually, this is inflammation working for us, working towards our healing. It was the body's way of stabilizing and cushioning an acute injury. The problem is that with the constant wear and tear that we're giving our joints and the process paired with the process of cartilage degeneration, inflammation can flood the joint and be the source of pain. So if you add that on top to the inflammation that's caused by our lifestyle and our diet, we actually are causing a lot of inflammation in our joints, unnecessary inflammation in our joints all the time. So our first strategy would always be to reduce inflammation in whichever ways are within our control. So things like our diet are going to be absolutely key here. And it is widely accepted that a Mediterranean diet is amongst the most anti-inflammatory diets in the world. It's mostly followed by people who live in the blue zones of the world. And if you're not familiar with that term, blue zone is an area in the world where people tend to lead longer and healthier lives than the average individual. Now, if you're looking for a really great resource on anti-inflammatory diets, I highly recommend a book named Meals That Heal Inflammation by Judy Daniluk. She's also a fellow nutritionist and we went to the same school. She's absolutely amazing. She teaches you a lot about anti-inflammatory actions within the body and gives you a lot of ideas for meals. Another key aspect of the anti-inflammatory diet is fiber. Having enough fiber in your diet will always be anti-inflammatory. Fiber is used as food for the healthy bacteria in your gut, and research is revealing that a strong gut flora is the key factor in turning the dial down on inflammatory responses in the body. On an average, Canadians eat about 8 grams of fiber per day when we really should be getting about 30 to 50 grams per day if we want to prevent obesity and the onset of chronic diseases. Fiber slows the rate at which nutrients pass through our bloodstream and increases the speed at which the food exits our digestive tract. This is why it helps our blood sugar and our cholesterol be in balance, and it quickly eliminates toxins from our gut. It also serves to bulk your food and keep you satiated for longer, which means that you're not actually grabbing as many snacks, you're not eating as often and raising your blood sugar. And it's also going to help you solve cravings. Another key element of an anti-inflammatory diet is to make sure you're getting ample fats, healthy fats, with each meal. Now, in the past, I'll give you a little history lesson. There was a colossal misunderstanding of the role that fats played in our diet. We were told that eating fats would make us fat, and it would clog up our arteries and cause cardiovascular problems. As a result of this, everyone started to stay away from fat, and then a whole bunch of chronic conditions due to the lack of fat in our diet started emerging, like hormone imbalance and neurodegenerative disorders. In fact, fats, and actually the right kind of fats, are completely essential to our body's proper functioning and processes. Unfortunately, now that people are eating fats again, and they're really enjoying the beautiful and yummy whole fat yogurts, they're just not getting their fats in the right balance, and this is a really big problem. The standard American diet, which is hilariously termed, or there's an acronym called the SAD diet, is unfortunately really rich in omega-6 acids, which sound great, but when you consider how little omega-3s there are in our diets, which is what needs to be in balance with omega-6s, this is really a problem. Omega-6s are found in poultry and many commonly used cooking oils, and omega-3s are found in things like cold water fish, nuts and seeds, flax seeds, chia, and the problem is that when we have too many omega-6s to too little omega-3s, the extra omega-6s get metabolized in a pro-inflammatory way. So the extra metabolites from the omega-6 breakdown ends up being pro-inflammatory to our bodies. So that's why it's really, really important to consider that we're eating enough healthy fats, avocados, olive oils, walnuts, different seeds and nuts, cold water fish, things like sardines or trout, salmon, mackerel, on a regular basis, in fact, a daily basis. So we have an anti-inflammatory diet that's full of fiber, full of fats, but what else should we be eating? As a general rule, the food that best serves your body is most often found in its whole form. That's because the whole food form usually contains more nutrition, as well as many of the enzymes you actually need to break down the food in the first place. So when foods have been refined, our bodies do not recognize them, and they just don't know how to digest them properly. The problem is that that causes confusion within our bodies and leads to an inflammatory cascade response. So my general rule of thumb is just avoid food and packaging as much as you possibly can. Cows don't produce low-fat strawberry-flavored yogurt, and that's for a reason. The fields don't produce boxes of crackers. I find as well that when we focus on whole foods, there is less need to actually calorie count as well, because we're flooding our body with amazing nutrition, and natural foods tend to have a lot more fiber, so we end up feeling more full and we just end up eating less. Processed foods tend to have very little nutritional value for the vast amount of calories that it gives you. So you end up dieting without really having to follow a diet. Your body's natural state is of wellness and balance, and it's constantly working its way back to that state of health. It's important to find ways to support our body's ability to self-heal by giving it the raw nutrients and the tools that it needs to get the job done, and then really leaving it to trusting it to do what it does best. One of the tools that we can give our body on a regular basis is movement. Your activity level really shouldn't be aggressive enough to shock your joints, but it should be challenging enough to get the lymph circulating. Now, your lymphatic system is the caretaker of your body. It is so important because it picks up all of the waste from all of your cells, and as well as all of the pathogens, the bacteria, and the pro-inflammatory compounds, and it transports it to your blood vessels near your shoulders, which then get pumped to the different organs for excretion. Things like sweat glands, liver, the colon, the kidneys, they excrete everything. But in order for this to really work perfectly, for this drainage to happen, we have to move our bodies because the lymph system doesn't actually have its own pump. It relies on our muscles to act as the pump, to do the compression and then the release that it needs to get rid of all of its toxins. Now, deep breathing, surprisingly, is the most effective and easy way to pump your lymph. Your respiratory diaphragm is centered right in the middle of your body, right near your heart, which pumps everything. So if you're doing deep breaths, that means your inhales are, say, 3 counts, and then your exhales are about 4 or 5 counts. Your exhales are a little bit longer than your inhales. You're going to notice that it will help your body detoxify. Low impact exercises are also going to be incredibly helpful because, of course, it gets your body moving and then it makes the lymph move as well. But you're going to want to make sure that you're choosing the right exercise for you, as I mentioned earlier. So things like water exercises would be really great for someone who's in a lot of pain, or even just taking slow paced walks in nature with nice deep breaths would be cleansing enough for you to really move that lymph. Another point that you can make or do in order to help your body heal is to supplement. Now, the body will always absorb its nutrients best from your natural diet, and supplements are not always the best way to get nutrition, but many of us don't eat nutrient-rich diets, or we have digestive issues where we're not getting as much or we're not absorbing as many nutrients from our natural diets. So supplementation in this case would be extra insurance. When you're shopping for supplements, you're going to want to make sure that you choose a multi that you've done research on. Not all multivitamins are made equal. And also, you're going to want to make sure that you're choosing one with a multi-mineral complex. Things like boron, copper, iron, these are all really important for the health of your joints, and they feed your body's ability to regenerate cartilage. So that's going to all really be important for you. So dietary supplements like collagen, they're amazing because they actually provide your body with the raw nutrients that it needs to build that collagen and build the health of your joint capsules. But remember that when you're eating collagen, it's not getting just automatically sucked up by your joints and being put to use right away. It has to go through a process. So you have to be patient with it, but remember that this is not the only thing that you should be doing. It's not the full solution. So you may be wondering, while you're waiting for your exercise and your diet to work its wonders, what is the most advisable way to deal with pain that you're experiencing and the joint swelling? Well, several head-to-head double-blind studies, which happen to be the absolute gold standard in scientific research, have shown that the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, also known as NSAIDs, may actually promote the disease process that's causing the pain in the first place. So instead, you can use something like glucosamine sulfate for pain relief because it actually gives the joints the nutrients that it needs to do the healing while addressing the anti-inflammatory benefits that you're hoping to get out of taking a pill. So it will help you with the pain as well as address the root cause of the pain in the first place. In fact, studies have shown that glucosamine sulfate exceeds NSAIDs in its benefits at the 6-week mark. So if you're taking glucosamine sulfate for 6 weeks, you're going to get more pain relief and more benefit in the long run than you would by using NSAIDs, which tend to irritate the gut lining and irritate the gut in general. In addition to glucosamine sulfate, there are botanicals that you can use to reduce the inflammation that you're experiencing very effectively. Boswellia is one, as well as curcumin, which you might be familiar with. Boswellia is referred to as Indian frankincense and is showing very promising research this year in particular in its effects on neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's. Researchers feel that this may be due to its very powerful systemic anti-inflammatory effect. And the best way that I find to take Boswellia would be to take a supplement. In fact, there are supplements on the market with Boswellia and curcumin in them. But in the case of curcumin, I actually would recommend taking it in its whole food form. Curcumin is a polyphenol or a micronutrient that is found in turmeric. And many of us might be familiar with turmeric, but turmeric is extremely well researched in the medical literature, second to ginger actually, and it's known for its powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects on the body. And I've actually shared a handout for you to download with an amazing recipe for golden milk. And this actually features turmeric with, of course, curcumin in it. And in order to maximize the benefits of curcumin, I really do recommend pairing it with black pepper and a little bit of fat. Fat is actually needed to suck that powerful antioxidant behavior of the curcumin right into the gut lining and distribute it through the body. So without the presence of a fat, you're not actually reaping the benefits of the curcumin, and a lot of people don't realize that. Vitamin D also plays a very important role in promoting joint and bone healing. In fact, vitamin D is being reclassified as a hormone right now, and that's for good reason. It's not going to be a vitamin any longer, and that's because it coordinates so many important functions in the body. A diet rich in calcium means absolutely nothing when we're deficient in vitamin D. That's because vitamin D regulates calcium metabolism and calcification of the bones and the teeth. And right now, most North Americans are deficient. In fact, OHIP used to cover vitamin D testing, but no longer do so because it's generally accepted that most people are very deficient. I would recommend taking a supplement. I really like vitamin D3 in a dropper format. I recommend taking 2,000 IUs per day. That's international units. Those are normally 2 drops if you're taking a dropper. And I recommend taking a vitamin D3 vitamin K2 complex. So the reason why I do that is because vitamin K2 is used along with vitamin D to absorb calcium into the bones. And we know that the stronger the bones, the healthier the bones, and therefore the healthier the joints. The other things that you can do to support joint healing would be things like adjunct therapies. Paramedical services like acupuncture, physio, massage therapy can really assist from a pain and strengthening perspective. You can also purchase a TENS machine, which is normally covered by most insurance plans, and it helps to bring blood flow to the joint capsule and nutrients as well. But I really want to emphasize mindset training because it's going to be a big factor that's often overlooked in healing. In fact, we see this all the time in clinical trials when placebos are used as controls. We find that therapeutic approaches with placebos actually produce clinical results, and that's because our minds can directly determine therapeutic outcomes just by thinking that we're receiving a medication. We've also seen this in action when we felt our hands sweat at the thought of a difficult conversation, or perhaps we've witnessed someone who was leading a very healthy life and then all of a sudden got a life-changing diagnosis and then experienced a decline right away. That's because our thoughts actually trigger our physiological changes. So our mind processes all of our thoughts, and then whether or not these thoughts are true, it triggers changes in our bodies and align with these thoughts. that's why it's important to adopt a really healing attitude. Which brings me to the 7 steps to developing a healing attitude. Number 1 would always be to be an optimist. Number 2, be aware of self-talk. So what are you saying yourself? What messages are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself hateful things, hurtful things? Your body does not know what is truth and what is fiction. It will take all of it and make it and act on it, act on the information that you're giving it. Reframe your questions is number 3. So ask better questions. These are things like reframing the victim mindset, for example. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Focus on, what can I do to make this situation better? This is a hard situation. I acknowledge it, but what can I do? What is within my power? Number 4 would be employing positive affirmations. And for those of you who are not familiar with the power of positive affirmations, a positive affirmation is a statement that is used to challenge negative or unhelpful thoughts. So going back to when I said that your brain does not distinguish and your physiology does not distinguish fact from fiction, when you challenge your negative thoughts with positive statements, you're training your mind and then your body to actually follow through on those positive truths or those positive statements. Number 5 would be to set positive goals. So positive goals are the ones that push you forward, propel you forward instead of those that make you stand still. And number 6 are visualizations. Visualizations are just like affirmations, but using imagery. So what you might do is, if you're experiencing pain, you might visualize a healing bright light just shining through the area of your body that you're experiencing pain and just washing away all of that pain. It's very powerful. And then number 7 is my favorite, and it's laugh often. We know the power of laughter. We know that we must continue to surround ourselves in the company and doing things that we really love to do and make us feel light and joyful. We're coming to the end of this presentation, and I really hope that you found a few tidbits of information that you can take with you and share with others that you care about. To recap what we've learned, joint degradation happens over time or due to a trauma, but it is possible to stop the damage and promote healing. Eating an anti-inflammatory diet will help a lot, and healing and pain management can actually happen simultaneously. Finally, it's really powerful that we use our mind as a tool to help make the difference in our health outcomes. So thank you so much for your kind attention. I am so grateful to have been given the opportunity to share this knowledge with you today. And please, if you'd like to be in touch with me, my name is Anya, and I am welcoming of all of your questions. Good luck on your path to prevention and body healing.